everyone. You know, those times when things happen in your life and you're thinking, this is totally taking me off track. Life just shifted and this is not how it should be going. And we think that when those things happen, when those catastrophes of this plan happen, that everything that we've been doing to follow God is upset. And that is, it's just not what we're supposed to be doing. And we try to get back on the track we were on before. The problem is when things happen and when we have been obedient and followed God and done what He's told us to do, and still our life like sidetracks, that's exactly where we're supposed to be. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, I was reading through the book of Ezra and chapters 7 through 10. If you want to follow along with where I'm reading, dive into that. So Ezra was a scribe, and God had given him the gift to interpret His word, to just hone in on His law. And so here's this gifted man. He had done everything to study God's law, and it said he had set his heart on not only learning the law, but practicing it and teaching others. And here, God calls him to go and rebuild the temple, lead these people. He didn't have a gift of leadership. He didn't have any of this stuff, and this was a total sidetrack of what he had been doing. And yet, he said, okay, let's do this. And he rallied people together. He had ups and downs. There were things that made him stop. There were things that made him go. He had this king who said, I want this to happen. And the time in God's plan had been specifically set up so that Ezra, who had been faithful and willing, was ready and waiting. So when God's plan was happening, and He said through, as we were talking about previously in videos about the Israelites and being exiled and all these things, it was going to have a certain period of time. Well, that period of time was up, and Ezra's life just happened to fall during this time. You see, God's plan is planned out. Our lives, when we live, are at a specific time. What God says is, if you're ready and willing, if you want to be part of my plan, just be ready. And don't think that when things go up and down and all awry and crazy compared to what you think your life should be like, that it's wrong. Because this is how my plan will play out. And you can be part of that. If you take what I give you, just like Ezra, he took the gifts that God had given him, accepted these massive gifts from the king of that time, who said, take what you want, pull things out of the treasury. Here's money from us. Here's, take the money from the people who've been living in exile, and we won't even charge you taxes, and go and rebuild the temple. Because God's plan was now ready to start unfolding in that direction. And of course, there were ups and downs. Ezra had to rely on other people. He realized that there was a lot of sin going on, and there was confession, and there was all these things. But it was Ezra's heart and his humble attitude and his willingness to go through those ups and downs, to rely on the gifts that God had given him, kind of didn't seem to really fit. He just knew God's law. But God knew that having somebody who knew His law and somebody who relied on truth was the most important person to put in charge of leading these people back. Because if they weren't following His law to the T, then they would mess up really fast, which they did. The priest went and intermarried with all of these other tribes back around the Judah and Jerusalem, and they had to put a stop to that. But would they have known if he had not had that training? No. And they would have got in that same trap that they got stuck in before that led them into exile. And so when God was looking for somebody to lead, when God was looking for somebody to be part of his plan, he picked someone who he knew had been faithful, and he knew had taken the gift he had given them, and in the time that it wasn't that prestigious, that it wasn't that lovely, made it prosper. And when we look at our own lives, we have to realize, do I want to be part of the plan? If so, can I be obedient in making what God has given me in this place, maybe this small little place in my life, and make it flourish and make it something that's worthy of being faithful, and that doesn't say, well, this isn't my plan, I don't want to do this. But we humble ourselves and we say, okay, this wasn't quite exactly what I thought was going to be the use of my gift, my skill, but God, I'm going to give it to you. And I'm going to trust that this can be made greater through you and your plan, because that's what life's about. It's about him. It's not about us. And it's about taking a step back and being humble in what we can do for God. I wrote down sometimes that our disobedience is the one thing that holds us back. It isn't our bad circumstances. We often think that, those sidetracks, like I talked about earlier, are the things that are going to mess up our lives. Actually, those are the things that usually put us back where we're supposed to be, and they make us develop our skills in a much more concentrated way, instead of the way we thought it would be best to develop them. I've seen that happen in my life so many times, that God has honed in on specific things, pointed out really bad flaws in me, and said, this is what you need to work on now. And then to turn it around, and after I've worked on them and trusted him in those things, for him to say, okay, now let's take what I've whittled down, taken all the stuff out of you that really shouldn't have been there, and now what's left, let's use that for something bigger, something better, that will be part of my plan, because now you're ready. You weren't ready before. And so I just want to encourage you, if you feel like life has really been sidetracked, that what in the world is going on with my life right now, that maybe God is preparing you in that place in the best way possible for something better that's coming. So be obedient. Stick it out. Be faithful. Lean on God. Lean on his strength and his wisdom, and see it through. Because that is what's going to be preparing you for whatever's coming next. And it would be sad if you weren't prepared. I know. I look back at my life and think, what if I hadn't? What if I hadn't chosen that? Would I have been ready? No, I wouldn't have. I know for sure with that. So anyways, thanks for joining me today on Daily Revelations. I'm glad to be back from vacation. So I'll be joining you most every day now, now that I'm back. But hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye, everybody.